A European teaching American history to the US. You probably don't know this, but Vietnam won. Yeah, they don't really tell us as bluntly as that. Actually, I don't even think they mention this, to be honest. To me and you, this guy was president of the United States. To the Japanese in World War II, he was lunch. Oh, are we gonna talk about that? He was the only survivor in his aircraft that was shot down in 1944. And let's just say you definitely didn't want to find yourself to be a prisoner of war under the Japanese at this time. The states of Maine and Vermont getting ready to vote against FDR again. I didn't hear no bell. If you didn't know, this US president FDR was the only president to get elected 4 different times. It was all in a row too, by the way. So obviously he was extremely popular, except in these 2 states. Maine and Vermont just continually told him, no, go away, please. European nations thinking of an animal for their coat of arms that is not a stupid lion or eagle. It's literally impossible. This is literally all they got. Take it or leave it. Well, no, occasionally they'll go with something wild like Milan. Is this a dragon? Or yeah, I guess you could count a horse. The Central Powers in 1917. The war isn't going well, but we can take solace in the fact that the Entente are just as worn out as us. Meanwhile, the United States entering the war with the greatest walk-up anthem of all time. With some double-barreled shotguns, too. Germany really did not like those. Please read the letter regarding the USA, okay? Invade Estados Unidos? Mexico thinks. 2 different battles where, yeah, a conflict against the USA didn't go so well. No, estúpido puta. And this is exactly how the Zimmermann telegram went. Germany wanted Mexico to invade the US during World War I, and Mexico was like, nah. Keep in mind, Mexico was literally in a revolution during that time. War, laughs Theodore Roosevelt. War, after your son died, cries Theodore Roosevelt. Yeah, a lot of things changed for him after that in WWI. The British after losing the American colonies. Meanwhile, the British, after noticing how fricked the French economy is because they helped fund the revolution, maybe things aren't so bad after all. Although, that would eventually lead to Napoleon. European royalty when they had their portraits painted versus European royalty when cameras were invented. Yeah, they didn't look that good in real life, did they? That generation's worth of incest eventually catches up. Filipinos who think the Philippines is a weak and pathetic country after reading a little bit of history. The Philippines beat the Dutch, the Turks. They also invaded Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, and Syria. Well, some of those invasions are participations in more recent conflicts. Oh yeah, but they had a lot of things going on historically. History is written by the victors. Sea peoples arrive, cause the collapse of the Bronze Age, refuses to write anything, leaves. They didn't even care to be remembered, and yet here we are, still remembering them. They left such a massive impact. It's still such a huge mystery today. How animals reacted when God dropped monkeys with infinite stamina. This is, for instance, the holy mammoth, woolly mammoth, and yeah. What's funny is there are still humans to this day that use this strategy. Like they'll run after a cheetah for 3 days straight until it's too tired, and then they get close enough and stab it. Other animals, stronger muscles, claws, more aerodynamic. Meanwhile, humans sweat. And that's the key. We can now run forever. The Romans brought civilization. Germanic tribes beholding their conquerors. Meanwhile, the Romans drinking lead and cleaning their teeth with pee-pee. With pee-pee? What? I haven't heard of that. I can't believe we got handpicked to deliver a message to the great Mark Antony. Always a true soldier and a true Roman. By gods, what is that thing? Mark Antony? Hey boys, long time no see. Message for me? Talk about a simp. Man was out here simping for Cleopatra. I mean, I probably would be too. Being a medieval monarch in fiction versus being a medieval monarch in reality. Yeah, sometimes certain monarchs weren't actually pulling in that much dough. Maybe like 40 doubloons a year. All depends on them taxes. Example of a carved cobblestone designed to pool rainwater for stray and wild animals. A common practice in the Ottoman Empire where charity to animals was highly valued. I love how throughout history you can still see humans' love for animals. This is beautiful. Medieval Europe's fragile peace being held up by the Catholic Church, providing some sense of order. I mean, that's a really good way to phrase it. Some sense of order. At that time, that's really what they needed because the medieval times was rough. POV, Macedonian generals expanding Macedonian Empire. I love this. And they're gonna just continue. Meanwhile, Roman generals trying their best to move their way up. During the Carthaginian Wars, the Punic Wars, it was a lot easier for Macedonian Empire. Why was it so easy for them? I mean, it did last less long, but Yeah, even when they were forced to split into East and West. It was like Alexander the Great from Macedon put the game on easy mode. When you see enemy charging during any war. Meanwhile, when you see enemies charging during World War I, this is the one time where charging is gonna be fun. About to massacre the other side. What the heck was wrong with World War I? That was just such a strange conflict. The First World War is so surreal that I'm constantly unearthing increasingly bizarre stuff about it. Obviously, you have the scary gas masks. Meanwhile, also the horses have them. Whatever type of weapon this was. What is this, like a nuke? Okay, this is just getting ridiculous. It was just such a pinnacle history with also human progress, the Industrial Revolution. We were learning the concepts of how to fight like an industrial war. So it was just very complicated. A lot of ideas, wild ones that were going out there. Kai, raging whilst reacting to the German suppression of the Slovak national uprising. Yeah, Kai's not a fan of the Germans stopping the Slovak national uprising. I didn't know Kai was a Slovak nationalist until now, but now I understand. The do D-Day option, or let the USSR take over mainland Europe. This was a predicament the Allies were in that I don't think a lot of people think about. I mean, you started to get the sense that Germany was going to collapse around 1943, but you don't really want to have to invade and do D-Day, which ended up being the most massive amphibious invasion of all time, obviously with lots of casualties, things like that. But don't do that, then Stalin's gonna take over literally all of continental Europe. Just it would all be his. Keep in mind though, Stalin himself wanted the British and Americans to open up a second front. When the Soviets tell you they're starving in the 1940s and you're the US, I'm gonna invent what's called a pro-gamer move. Talk about spamming spam. In 1941 alone, the US supplied 150 million pounds of spam. Without spam, we wouldn't have been able to feed our armies, says Khrushchev. That literally is a pro-gamer move. They spammed the first spam. I know you're in the middle of a war and you can't really be picky, but spam? Germany getting blamed for both world wars. Do you think this is funny? Yeah, I actually think they do. I mean, I can kind of see why Austria's laughing. They got away with saying it's all Germany's fault, not ours. Why haven't you tried gerbils maxi ions? Be me, 22-year-old university student, crippling anxiety which prevents me from approaching girls or making friends. Even if I do manage to talk to someone, I can't hold their attention for long because anxiety. One day, discover gerbils speeches after 5 hours gooning session. WTF, so charismatic. Start noting the hand movements he makes while speaking. Start talking like gerbils. Suddenly everyone is interested in talking to me. Many friends. Gather the nerve to talk to girls at pubs. They actually talk to me and I'm able to hold a conversation. Grades improve dramatically because I give interesting presentations now. Talking like a... Oh no. I think you could probably choose better people to do this with. There's other charismatic people, you know, like anyone else. Feudalism started because of the introduction of stirrups in Europe following the Battle of Tours. The greater the control stirrups provided for riding on horseback led to shock heavy cavalry and knights. Don't think other historians really care, Lynn White, but you know, I guess you can share that information, it's fine. The great stirrup controversy. These are probably pretty important. The Arabs living in Nablus thanking Iraqi soldiers for liberating their town. The Iraqi soldiers knowing full well that they are Israeli. Oh, well, that's a little bit awkward. That was in 1967 too. I don't know why I was thinking that was like ancient history. We have recreated the ultimate Wonderwaffe. Thanks, Sealand. Is it in the box? No, it is the box. So what is in the box? Nothing. It's just a really good box. It is a nice box, I have to admit. And so begins cargo. These are pretty crucial, to be honest. You think about it, they're really important things. Sealand Industry creating the most overpowered box in the history of boxes. Kind of hard to imagine what we'd be doing without these boxes. The Moroccans, after winning this siege in 1720, it has been 27 years. I mean, as far as sieges go, isn't that like average? Okay, it's not average. That is kind of a longer one, but entire generations of Moroccans were sieging that exact city, more than likely. At least two. Some historians refer to the 17th century as the general crisis in Europe. There was the Wars of the Three Kingdoms, the 30 Years' War in a lot of Europe, the Price Revolution in Spain, the Ottoman Habsburg Wars, the Deluge here in Poland, and finally Russia going through the times of trouble. When looking at it like this, the 1600s probably was their darkest century. I mean, the 30 Years' War was a big one of the longest and most destructive conflicts in European history, and so many countries were involved in that. And I love how confusing it was because it lasted so long. Like different members joined at different times. Sometimes people switched sides, and yeah, during that very same time, there was a British Civil War going on. The one place that didn't experience too bad of a time though, the Netherlands. Yes, oftentimes the 1600s is called their golden age. Dutch trade, science, art, and Dutch military were the most acclaimed in the world. Your Majesty, I give you this jade as a present. King Lee of Chu, this is just a rock. Cut off his left foot. Please, Your Majesty, this is jade. This is just a rock. Cut off his right foot. Your Majesty, I crying because no one believes me. King Wen of Chu, I double checked the rock. It's indeed jade. As I apologize, I will made this jade into the heirloom seal. I mean, that's a nice consolation for losing both my feet, but you know, oh wow, this is actually really nice. Definitely not a rock to me. Patron, so one of the horses will be drawn from the side and the other will be from the front. Medieval artist. From the front? Patron, right. You know how to draw horses from the front, right? Yeah. Totally. Oh my god. Is this a bean? He drew some sort of a egg horse. Oh, is this because like his rider died or something? Is that what turned him into this small orb? Man, that is horrifying. And thank you to the patrons. You can go to the link in the description down below to patreon.com to support me. JohnDenver, Jack Traven's annoying friend. I can't sleep without Drew's voice. InquisitorXarius, Hedlund, Fredrik Tibblin, Drew, it's your dad back with the DaBeautiful-MEGAN-Underwood, Carmel Amateur Archaeology,
RyeThePie,
Sebby, if you hear this, I love you,
Mexican 760,
LuxembourgLover, Tambre, and ZaneyBoi.